What's up, chat? What's going on? Let's cut the music curly. What's up, chat? What's going on? Canelo Charlo isn't official, but it feels like it might be any minute now. And it's a fight that, Canelo, we got a lot to get into, obviously. As always, some notes to get into like we like to and everything. But there's a fight that I've been wanting to see since they were both junior middleweights, since around 2016, 2015, around the time Jermall Charlo fought and got his IBF title against K9 Bunridge. And, better late than never. This is still a really attractive fight to me, even with Jermall Charlo coming off a 2-year layoff, having never fought at 168 pounds. But, these, even though Jermall's never fought at 168, he was a huge 154 and a big 160, bigger than Canelo in those two divisions. They both really started their championship pedigree at 154 pounds. That's the first division they both became champions at. Look, I'm not gassing it up. Canelo's for the time being ducking the David Benavidez fight, the fight at 168 pounds, and he's picking on Charlo when he thinks him and Eddie Reynoso are picking on Charlo when they think Charlo's weak, coming off 2 years having never fought at 168. So they're doing smart business moves on their part, trying to risk reward, all that evaluation that goes into being a top prize fighter that's been going on since Sugar Ray Leonard kind of waited out Marvin Hagler. So typical kind of A-side tactics from Canelo Alvarez here. Obviously David Benavidez is the fight we all wanted to see, but Canelo Charlo is a fight I think we've all wanted to see as well. Just not as much as of late, since Charlo has been inactive, but there's a couple, there's a way that Charlo's inactivity could work for him. Now, I'm gonna say what's up to the chat in a second, but they're the same age at about 32, going on 33 years old, or one of them might be 33 and the other's 32, but they're basically the same age. But Canelo has had twice as many professional fights, and that's made him a lot more accomplished and seasoned than Jermall Charlo, more of a complete fighter than Jermall Charlo, whose performances have been a little inconsistent. One fight, he looks like a potential world beater. He looks like the best middleweight in the world. And then the next fight, against a Dennis Hogan or against a Matt Korobov, he don't look so hot. But when Charlo's firing on all cylinders, he's a very, very good fighter with a very good package. Pause, as my man Shakur Stevenson would say. And there's a chance that even with 2 years off, that because he has so much less mileage on his odometer than Canelo, that in some ways it could be a benefit, the less wear and tear he's had. It's not a benefit to be out of the ring for 2 years, but it could definitely be a benefit that he hasn't been in nearly as many world title fights. It hasn't been in as many fights, period. Been in about half as many fights. So, God Bless says, shut up, stop trying to sell the fight. Charlo has been inactive. Not selling the fight. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. The fight to make at super middleweight, as we all know, is David Benavidez against Canelo. So, this is a consolation prize. It's Team Canelo and Reynoso trying to be smart. PBC kind of appeasing Canelo to get what they want. Multiple fights out of a cash cow and Canelo. This is a deal where everyone's getting hit off with something happy. Charlo hasn't fought in 2 years. Going through some problems outside of the ring, apparently, allegedly divorce problems, and so that always hits your wallet hard. So Charlo gets what he wants, the career payday, the life-changing payday. Canelo and Eddie Reynoso get what they want, the easy fight instead of a rematch with Bivol or a fight with Benavidez. They take on a guy who's never fought at 68, who hasn't fought in 2 years, so they're happy. PBC's happy because they get one of the, pretty much the cash cow in boxing. There's a few others, but they get the guy who's still the cash cow in boxing. They get him for multiple fights, not just one fight. They get him for 3 fights. PBC's probably licking their lips thinking, if Errol Spence can get past this Terrence Crawford fight, gigantic if, then, Benavidez Canelo's cool, but we might make Canelo versus Errol Spence at super middleweight, because Errol Spence north of 147, nothing's attractive for him. The only meaningful fight north of 147 for him is Jermall Charlo, and that's his friend, and they share the same trainer, so that's not happening. 160 is a wasteland right now, so I'm not selling it. I mean, it's Canelo It's Canelo trying to work himself in an advantageous situation against a guy he thinks is a weak link right now because he hasn't fought in over 2 years. It is what it is. But Jermall Charlo, when he's firing on all cylinders, isn't a walk in the park for anybody. Quickly, the 3 points. 2023 is easily one of the best years in boxing history since the new millennium, and we can kind of even fact check that by looking at year by year the best fights since the 2000s. And 2023 is going to go down as holding its own with just about any year since the new millennium. But 2023 is easily one of the best years in boxing history since the new millennium. Canelo Charlo isn't happening at the perfect time. It probably should have happened at 160 pounds back in 2019, around the time Canelo fought Jacobs, and Charlo at 160, being more active than he is now. But Charlo, in my opinion, does have a chance, even though that's not what the fight's set up for. And then PBC's cooking. Some people thought that they were cooked, past tense, but they're cooking. They're killing the game right now, and later on we could talk about why. The PBC haters would say they're making these fights out of pressure, and the PBC lovers would just say this is just PBC doing PBC. They're the best company ever, and you need to stop. You need to get off Al Heyman's dick and give the man some credit and all that. And as usual, I have everybody mad at me. I'm in the middle, trying to keep it objective. Which is that PBC has outlasted their adversaries. I'll be quickly on this, so we could touch on this more later, but to give PBC credit, they've outlasted their adversaries, and at a time where there's more money overseas trying to draw marquee fights away from the United States than ever, they're the ones holding it down in the United States, keeping big-time boxing in America. So shout out to the PBC and Al Heyman for that. And they're outlasting their adversaries. Top Rank, one of the greatest companies in boxing history. Bob Arum, a legend, obviously. No, I don't even need to say that. But as people from the PBC will point out to me when I'm having at times heated discussions, because I am neutral and they get mad at me for not always agreeing with their sentiment for their company, PBC, and they'll point out to me, Top Rank, if you absent the Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury fights, can't make big marquee pay-per-views anymore. Well, Haney Lomachenko was a good pay-per-view. They did sell out, but that was their first one, non-Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder in some years. So they're beating Top Rank. Matchroom is in shambles because Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, kind of foolish and lazy by thinking just by having more money than your competitors, you could do the old William Randolph Hearst. You could come in like that the movie Citizen Kane was based on. Put twice as much money on the man's desk and say, you work for me now. And that's essentially what Eddie Hearn thought he could do with Leonard Blavatnik's $1 billion budget back in 2018. I'm going to offer them twice the money, and after that point, who gives a shit if I'm butt naked when they're going to take it because people go with better money. So he thought, if allegedly he even was offering more money. He didn't expect the kind of fight on his hands that he got, and he's lost in the United States. So PBC's doing their thing. They're cooking. Now, to keep it objective, to not dick ride on PBC, right? Their original plan was to be to bring free marquee fights, pay-per-view level fights to free network television, and they did so when they did Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter, when they did Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia. But apparently, it didn't connect the way it needed to with audiences because CBS, they did Spence Bundu, but never really got back into boxing in prime time. NBC, same thing. Fox hasn't been putting on boxing as of late, really, in the last several months. I'm not saying that PBC and Fox are over with. That hasn't been confirmed by anybody. But the last several months, they haven't been doing their thing. Smaller networks like Spike TV, Bounce, it didn't work. And so now, with potentially their last network, who they began with, Showtime, Steven Espinoza, now they're playing their best chips all together and giving us one of the greatest years in boxing history. But it's not hating on the PBC to point out those missteps they've had in the last almost decade, and because it would be not keeping context to just, oh, they're the greatest and they're the greatest and they're the best, and it would not be keeping context to just take credit away from them for having one of the best years in the sport. So that's kind of how I deduce it all, to keep some objectivity about the business side of boxing has never been my forte. What I got into boxing and what I enjoy talking about is the X's and O's and what happens in the ring and what happens with these guys as men. The suits and the business stuff is I don't want to say it's over my head. If I put my brain to it, I could go there, but it's not really what I'm into. But that's that on some of that. I do have a super chat to get to with my man Christian Salvador. Thank you, brother, for the super chat. And Christian is saying, hands down, Sean is the best reporter in boxing, followed by Mike Coppinger, I believe you're talking about, and then Chava, my man Chava from ESPN Deportes. Thank you, Christian. Appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Someone said Sean's wife has a black son. No, he's actually, who said that? Mikolai Volkov. No, he's actually half Mexican, and then the rest is Italian, German, Irish. But, I read the comments from the haters, too. That's how we do it. So, to touch on this first point real quick, how 2023 is easily one of the best years in boxing history since the new millennium, all you got to do is compare it to some of HBO's prime years, like the year 2000, and you'll see that it holds up. Let's look at the year 2000 is one of the first years I thought of when I started seeing people on social media say, this might be one of the best years in boxing. And I go, all right, well, let's kind of do some quick research and put that to the test. So in 2000, we had Morales Barrera. We had Trinidad David Reed, but the main fights of 2000, Morales Barrera won. Vargas versus Ike Cuarte. Sugar Shane Mosley against Oscar De La Hoya. Their first fight was incredible. I think my son's back there making some noise. It's his birthday tomorrow. Very underrated fight between Bernard Hopkins and Antoine Eccles. And then one of the great fights of all time, Felix Trinidad versus Fernando Vargas. So you put, sorry, my son in the back getting me a little bit, but you put, so the main fights from 2000, which was HBO in its peak, HBO in its heyday, the 90s, early 2000s, you get Trinidad, Vargas, you get Vargas versus Cuarte, you get De La Hoya Mosley, you get Morales Barrera 1. You compare that to 2023, and we got Fulton versus Inoue, that's undisputed. Taylor versus Teo, Haney versus Lomachenko, that was undisputed. Crawford versus Spence, that's undisputed. Plant versus Benavidez, Tank versus Ryan. That's about 4 or 5 or 6 fights that you could put up with just about, any. And again, to keep it objective, you could nitpick some of those fights. Canelo, Charlo, I can't wait to see it, but it is, you could argue, definitely happened in a couple years too late. Probably should have happened at middleweight, but still a great fight. Tank versus Ryan. Ryan was never really proven at the elite level. Kind of a glorified prospect with really fast hands and a great left hook. So that wasn't like, there wasn't even technically a world title fight. But still, the kind of business it brought and the kind of talent in terms of hand speed and power that both guys brought to the table, Ryan being much more unproven, Tank a lot more proven. Spence Crawford maybe should have happened in terms of, not in terms of marketability, not in terms of making money. The fight in terms of making money is happening at a better time than ever. But in terms of both guys at their absolute apex peaks, Errol Spence before a car accident, before having to make welterweight into his 30s, Terrence Crawford with fresher legs. But that being said, it's still undisputed. They're still in their prime, if not their apex peaks. And it's still for undisputed and still going to go down as, I think, an all-time welterweight classic. So, we keep things in perspective, but we also got to give, I don't even like this phrase, but we do got to give flowers, to use 2023 talk. We do got to give flowers when they're due. And flowers to Al Heyman and the PBC. They've killed it this year, historically, factually speaking, putting on one of the all-time great years in boxing since the new millennium. So, Benavidez couldn't drop Plant, says Mikhail Volkov. No, he could not, and Canelo was able to. But let's not act like Caleb didn't get some assistance from Kenny Bayless, like in the 9th round, giving him almost 2 minutes of time when he was badly hurt. Lots of clinching that never got warned or any point deductions. And then ultimately, Benavidez put more of a beating, more physical punishment, took more of a pound of flesh out of Caleb Plant than Canelo Alvarez did. I think Caleb Plant just wasn't willing to go to the canvas no matter what because of the kind of personal pride between the two of them in that matchup. Raider Reaper said Canelo wants all the smoke. He shut all the haters up. Thank you for the super chat, Raider Reaper. But Someone said, I forgot, this is Floyd hype. Never sobers. If I was just Floyd hype, I'd say Floyd is TBE. I don't think Floyd would have beat Tommy Hearns at 147 pounds. I don't think he would have beat Sugar Ray Leonard at 147 pounds. I don't think in 2005, if he would have went ahead with that Winky Wright fight, if Winky... Now, that was on Winky. Winky wanted 50-50 when Floyd was taking all the risks, going up to 54. If Winky would have took that 55-45 or that 40%, I think Winky would have beat Floyd. So, we don't do that, But as for Canelo wanting all the smoke, Raider Reaper, and shutting all the haters up, thank you for the super chat. He hasn't shut all the haters up yet because these 3 fights have to play themselves out. If it's Charlo, then that means for his first outing, he's taking on an exciting fight, but not the fight. He's technically ducking Benavidez in this first fight at 168 pounds. And then, for all we know, Canelo's licking his chops at an Errol Spence fight. He doesn't really want the David Benavidez fight. For all we know, Canelo's hoping Spence gets past Crawford as the younger, bigger man. And that's really what he has in mind. And it never has in mind fighting David Benavidez. So if Canelo sticks around 168 pounds and never fights Benavidez or Morrell, if Morrell beats Benavidez, if they fight in the fall, then no, he hasn't shut all the haters up yet. And rarely do you shut all the haters or critics up. And sometimes it's because, no man is perfect in this world, but God, and God's not a man anyways. But so inevitably, no matter how good you do, there will always be something to say if someone wants to take an angle. But Canelo still got to get that Benavidez fight in. I'm not down on the Charlo fight. This is a fight I wanted to see since they were junior middleweights. And even though Charlo's moving up from 60, he's always been bigger than Canelo. They both started at 54. So I don't really think size is an issue. It's more the ring rust that's an issue. And the lack of experience at this level versus Canelo is an issue. But physical talent, size, jab, we'll go over some of the boxes Charlo checks in a minute. 04, we had Christian Salvador. Thank you again for the super chat. 04, we had great boxing fights. We had Marquez versus Pacquiao 1. That fight was amazing. Got called a draw. Then we had Hopkins De La Hoya. Hopkins De La Hoya had an incredible, legendary build-up. That was one of the biggest fights of my lifetime. It did a little over 1 million buys. So there are fights that have done more business than De La Hoya Hopkins. But if you were there in 04, De La Hoya going for undisputed at 160, so many people were comparing that fight to Sugar Ray Leonard moving up against Marvin Hagler. A lot of people were picking De La Hoya to pull off the upset against Hopkins. That was a huge fight. And then Barrera Morales 3, almost as good as their first fight. An amazing fight where Barrera was a huge underdog and then upsets Morales. And then Morales 4 months later, who would do this this is why Eric Morales, along with Bernard Hopkins, my favorite fighter ever. 4 months later, after taking an L to a guy that got destroyed by Pacquiao and Barrera, and he beats Manny Pacquiao in March of 05. Only Eric Morales could do it like that. Thank you, Christian Salvador. And then Christian Salvador with another super chat pointing out that Tarver versus Roy Jones, the rematch was in 04, where Tarver knocked out Roy. 04 also had great fights like Glenn Johnson versus Tarver was a great fight. Eric Morales had 2 wars with Jesus Chavez and Carlos Hernandez that were both rewatchable wars. Trinidad Mayorga did the hit me to Trinidad like a maniac. That was a great fight in 2004. So we've had some great fights. And again, in 2023, we're going to get Ryan Tank, Plant Benavidez, Canelo Charlo, it would seem, Fulton Inoue, Crawford Spence, Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney versus Lomachenko, maybe some other fights on the horizon like Benavidez versus Morrell, which is the second best fight at 168 pounds outside of Canelo taking on David. And then we still got the heavyweights who have yet to mix it up really this year. They'll produce something big by the end of the year, whether it's Wilder Ruiz or something. And Jermall Charlo is still yet to fight Tim Tszyu. That's another big fight on the horizon. Demetrius Andrade might fight Caleb Plant from what I'm hearing when I talk to people, behind the scenes. So it's a great year, man. And Christian Salvador, thank you again, brother, for the super chats. You too kind. Christian Salvador is balling, apparently. He can give out super chats like nothing. 05, Pacquiao versus Morales, Castillo versus Corrales, or Pacquiao versus Morales, Castillo, Corrales, best fight ever. Yeah, 2005, Two boring fights, kind of, with Hopkins and Taylor, but two very tense and memorable and disputed fights from 2005. 2005 had Floyd Mayweather's greatest performance, in my opinion, against Arturo Gatti. 05, what else was in 05? Oh, Chris Bird versus the Touch of Sleep, Davario Williamson, the greatest fight ever. If you know, you know. Chris Bird versus the Touch of Sleep in 05. Vlad Klitschko against Sam Peter in 05 was a great fight. On the undercard, Ricardo Torres and Miguel Cotto. You know, we've had some great years, and 23 is one of them. Jack says, does this cement Canelo as the face of boxing? Canelo, Tyson Fury, and Tank Davis are... I know Anthony Joshua, but he's taken some losses lately, and that hurts you. I think they're the three biggest names in boxing. If I had to rank them in the United States, Canelo 1, Tank 2, and then Fury. Globally, Canelo 1, Fury 2, Tank 3. Canelo remains the biggest name, in boxing, but Tank is catching up to him. Fury's up there too. Guys in America like Wilder and Spence have their followings that are significant. But yeah, Canelo's the face of boxing right now, but he was kind of the unchallenged face of boxing in 2020, 2021, and now he shares the stage a little bit. And he still hasn't regained truly his luster from the Bivol loss yet. The only thing that wipes the taste out of the mouth of people, pause, right? I'm start using the pause now, even though it irritates me. I'm gonna incorporate it because Shakur Stevenson just, ever since I talked to him at Haney Lomachenko, he does have it in the back of my head. But I even forget what I was saying now. Oh yeah. But he has to. The only way that wipes the taste out of people's mouth is a big win. People didn't really forget about Roberto Duran losing and saying no mas to Sugar Ray Leonard. He went on and lost to Benitez, lost to Hearns. People didn't really start to forget about it until he knocked out Davey Moore. And then he gave them something new to chew on, something new to think about, and that's what regained his luster. And that's what Canelo needs, because Golovkin and Ryder didn't do it. One was overmatched in Ryder, and the other was old in Golovkin. Now, Charlo may be coming off of 2 years, but he's undefeated and still pretty much in his physical prime. Piecing up Charlo, if he could dominate Charlo, even stop him, that would give Canelo really his luster back since taking the L to Bivol. If he has another really competitive, close fight with Charlo, then he maintains his stock. He's still Canelo, but that won't quite get him back. He lost his aura of invincibility that he built up a little bit after losing to Bivol. He doesn't have that right now. So yeah, let me see if I got some things I got to get to in the chat. No, we're good. All right, so let me go over some of those notes on Charlo real quick, because a lot of you are going to say, shut the fuck up, Sean. The man hasn't fought in 2 years. He hasn't fought that good of fighters. He just shut the fuck up. This is fight number 1 of 3 with PBC. He's there to fucking lose and make his career payday, and then go off and pay alimony and do what he get fucking real. Be real with us, Sean. The man has no chance. If I felt that way, I would tell you. I just don't. I've always been high on Jermall Charlo's talent because, I'll go over it right here, because, and this is an if, obviously, but when he's firing on all cylinders, like in the J-Rock fight in 2016, like in the Derevianchenko fight in 2020, 2 fights he was up for, he checks a lot of boxes. And what are those boxes? Jab. The punch that has given Canelo problems against Golovkin, against Bivol, is the jab. And and when he's on, he has a thudding shotgun jab. He has an excellent jab. Size. He's big at 6 feet tall. Athleticism. He's a natural athlete. He's got the kind of body of a guy that could, play other sports. Counterpunching. Don't believe me that he's a counterpuncher? Go watch the J-Rock knockout. He rolled and came back with the uppercut. He did the shoulder roll and rolled and came back with the uppercut to knock him out. Never been dropped, so he's got a good chin. Power, not a knockout artist, but power. He does have power. And less mileage on him than Canelo. He's had half as many professional fights as Canelo. If it was like the NBA, it'd be like they're both 29 years old, but one guy's played so many more minutes in his career with, you know, more wear and tear on the body. Big problems are, among others, he hasn't fought in over 2 years. He's never fought at 168, though both really got started at 154. Hasn't fought nearly the kind of opposition Canelo has. Out of the ring problems, not even just this divorce stuff that's been around, and but also drinking. I've seen Jermall drunk at a lot of fights. Canelo drinks too, but I've seen Jermall drunk a number of times at fights. Hey, that's that man's life, but that can catch up to you in the ring. And then also Juan Macias in his last fight, he hit him a lot. Even though Charlo won almost every round in that fight and had Macias Montiel out on his feet multiple times in that fight, he was getting pieced up with uppercuts, body shots, the exact kind of punches Canelo's going to be throwing at him, just at a much, much higher level. So, early prediction is that Canelo's advantages in punch accuracy, especially to the body, he's so accurate underneath, and Macias was piecing Charlo up with those shots underneath the elbows. So his advantages in punch accuracy and upper body movement should help him win a very exciting fight. Charlo isn't a guy that's going to get up on his bike like Plant did at times, like Saunders did at times. Callum Smith never tried to win. Charlo is going to throw some combinations in exchange with Canelo and try to challenge him in the exchanges. I give Canelo the edge because when they exchange, Canelo's shorter guy, better head movement, could get underneath and then place those accurate body shots to the taller frame of Charlo underneath his elbows. And then when you look at how Macias was piecing him up with uppercuts, and then Canelo will be able to do the same. However, Canelo's kryptonite has been the jab against Bivol, against Golovkin in their first fight. And Charlo, when he's on, has a very thudding, excellent jab. If he can establish his jab, he has a chance to win the fight. If he can establish his jab early. So, let me get to another super chat or two. Let me see here. One moment here, folks. All right. So, again, from my man Raider Reaper, thank you so much, brother, for the support and the super chats. I got my son's birthday tomorrow, so you're helping pay for some birthday presents. Benavidez' best hit on Plant was a headbutt. I disagree. David, some of his best work came in those clinches when Plant would be holding on to one free arm, and David, usually with the left hook, would just pound away on Caleb Plant in those clinches. And he actually countered Plant a couple times in the second half. Plant, with his sharp feet, started to jump in a little bit as David stayed disciplined at long range. Wasn't getting off first. Plant was quicker on the draw, was getting off first. But as the fight went on, Benavidez kind of held his ground and stopped reaching for punches as much. And so Plant kind of started jumping in behind his jab and try to rat-a-tat some combinations. And Benavidez began to catch and shoot on him. And I thought those were his best punches in the second half, was either in the clinch with one arm free while Plant was clinching on the other one and banging away with the left hook usually as Plant held on. And then also down the stretch in the second half when Plant started to jump in with combinations and David would do the catch and shoot on him. I thought those were his best punches, not the headbutts. But that's just me, Raider Reaper. And then also, has Canelo ever mentioned a Spence fight? He said Crawford would win. Canelo has always picked Crawford to beat Spence, but he has mentioned a Spence fight. And when I've talked to him, I'd have to go to the archives and look at some old interviews here on FightHype. But I remember asking Canelo about Spence, and him never shooting it down. He would say, the reality of it all. He goes, too many weight classes, but maybe you never know. You never know. That's what Canelo would say, and but he does pick Crawford to win. And then Charlo versus Plant, tune up for both. Charlo versus Plant. Actually, Raider Reaper, I'm hearing some rumblings that Plant might get Andrade. But just some rumblings, nothing nearly concrete. So I mean, don't hold your breath. But I'm hearing that Andrade might get Plant instead of Charlo. Charlo getting Canelo, like everyone's hearing. But I am also hearing Charlo's not finalized either. So, and I do talk to people, but I'm hoping Canelo Charlo is. I mean, The fight we really all want is Canelo Benavidez, but talking to people very, very, very close to Canelo Benavidez, reportedly, allegedly, Canelo may have said, if they're offering me $45 to $60 million now to fight Benavidez, how much will they offer me next year? Thinking he could get even more money and make a lot of money, first and foremost, taking the more, winnable fight on paper with Charlo, and then double dip, come right back, and then you saw he signed a 3-fight deal. I think, I kind of feel like, pure speculation, I kind of feel like plan A is actually for Spence to beat Crawford and to match up Spence with Canelo. And I actually feel like the parties involved would rather do that than even Canelo Benavidez. So, but I favor Crawford to win that fight, and if so we'll see. But no, thank you, Raider Reaper. And I got another one from my man Christian Salvador again. Christian Salvador saying Charlo's getting one last payday. With his recent inactivity, this fight lost a lot of steam. Canelo by knockout within 8, says Matt's Adventures. Oh no, it's Matt's Adventures. Thank you, Matt. Good to see you in the chat, brother. And I got to get to Christians too, but Matt, look, the fight lost steam. I don't disagree. They should have fought at 160 pounds in 2019. But Canelo by knockout within 8, no way. No way. No way. No way. I'll eat crow, Matt. To you, brother, if I'm wrong. No way. Canelo does not win by knockout in 8. Charlo's never been down. And John Ryder, ladies and gentlemen, just went 12 with Canelo. To the man's credit, he walked through a ridiculous amount of punishment. His equilibrium was off about a dozen times. He got dropped twice. Should have been dropped 3 or 4 times if the referee called a few other knockdowns. So, Ryder, that fight probably should have been stopped for Ryder's sake. But Canelo in that fight began to really remind me of Pacquiao after the Cotto fight, after the peak. Pacquiao, when he started fighting Bradley and Chris Algieri and Brandon Rios, and when he would fuck these guys up. I mean, he would fuck them up. He would do his thing, oftentimes drop them, hurt them, but not get them out of there. And that's what Canelo looked like to me against Golovkin and Ryder. Kind of like Pacquiao was at that stage of his career. Still pound for pound, still elite, still a top fighter, but not that guy against Cotto, against Hatton, against De La Hoya, against David Diaz. Still in the prime, but the peak is done. And that's definitely the vibe I get from Canelo these days, is that the peak was, that early run at 68. Felding, Plant, Smith, Saunders. And now he's at the stage where Pacquiao was after those Cotto, De La Hoya, Hatton fights. Still great fighter. Still Pacquiao. Still Canelo. But I don't know, Matt. I'll eat crow if I'm wrong. The day, September 17th, because I think September 16th is supposed to happen. I'll eat crow if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think it's a competitive fight, and I think Canelo's going to win. But I do think stylistically, Charlo, he's not a mover like Plant, Saunders, even Bivol, who pieced Canelo up and won that fight 7-5, 8-4 decisively, cleanly. Used his feet a lot and was conservative. Did enough to win. Didn't really took a few chances late. Stood in there with Canelo and surprised Canelo with a left hook on the inside. I remember that. Canelo getting a little lazy, not expecting him to counter the counter puncher, and I remember that. But outside of that, kept it very conservative with the jab. Charlo is going to fight Canelo, I think. That's just his style. He's going to let go of his hands and punching range and combination. He's going to try to test Canelo in those exchanges, and I think Canelo will be up to it with his better head movement, ability to get underneath with that head movement, score to the body, score with the uppercut. I know Charlo's going to get his head knocked up a lot, but Charlo's not a bitch, man. I don't think he's going down without a fight, and I think it'll be an entertaining fight. So, let's see. I got to see... Christian Salvador says, it doesn't matter. Thank you for the super chat again, brother. It doesn't matter if Canelo fights versus David Benavidez next year. Haters will still find something to hate. When you're the face of boxing, people will always hate. Thank you, Christian Salvador. And yeah, inevitably, as we all know, no matter how, Sugar Ray Robinson has been dead and buried for 50 plus years. There's people who hate on him and say he got 19 losses and he fought majority of bums every 2 to 3 weeks, you know, and he lost to guys like Randy Turpin, who wouldn't even be in the top 10 today at middleweight, and you know, so, but the word hater, I do think is overused in the last decade plus in our culture. Critics get a bad rap because people think of critics as only being critical. But in order to be a critic, you must be critical, which requires critical thinking, which is important. It's important to be critically thinking. And so critics, a great critic, the problem is that it's thought of that a critic's job is just to criticize and to hate. That's not true. A great critic is able to dole out praise with the same beauty they are able to dole out harsh criticism. That's why all those old movie reviewers back in the day, Ebert and Roper, if they talked about a movie like The Godfather, they could talk and they wouldn't just praise it. They wouldn't just say it's a great movie, it's a great film. They would say it's a masterful film, a beautiful film, a film that invokes like Greek epics from back in the day, Shakespearean, and all that shit. And then when they talk about another movie, uninspired, lazy, predictable, bad acting, da 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 da. And so in boxing or in anything, instead of being haters or dick riders, it's okay to be a critic, because a great critic can talk about the mastery of Floyd Mayweather's boxing, his sublime, virtuoso boxing skills and reflexes and brilliance, and then also, criticize and say, hey, you never fought Paul Williams. You never fought Paul Williams, straight up, and you acted like the guy didn't exist when you knew damn well who he was. So that's my take on that, is we overuse that word hater a little bit too much, and critics, they get a bad rap. It's a skill set. Being a critic, a good one, being good at anything is a skill set, and being a good critic, it doesn't just mean you're like, I love Stephen A. Smith, but it doesn't just mean you're a hot take artist, or it means you're able to properly praise and criticize when need be, when appropriate. So I try to do that. Dane Sampson, what's up, Dane? Good to see you in the chat, brother. Dane Sampson said Navarrete versus Valdez is another great fight to add to the list, Sean. Yeah, it is. It is. I favor Valdez. Navarrete opening up with that beautiful off-time, off-rhythm, heavy-handed uppercut. It is a thing of beauty because it's so awkward and he makes it work for him. But opening up with that left uppercut from long range, he's begging for the short, compact left hook of Oscar Valdez, tight with his defense, bang. Because Oscar Valdez is funny to me because he gets hit a lot and yet kind of has a good defense, if you ask me. He's one of these guys, like, he's kind of the proof that having moves doesn't, like Errol Spence is getting at with Terrence Crawford, that being more fundamentally sound sometimes is going to get the job done against superior versatility and athleticism. Oscar Valdez, to me, does a lot of moves on defense. He could move his head. He could drop his lead hand every now and then and move his head. He could keep the high guard up and move his head like a knockoff Canelo, and he uses his feet, too, sometimes. Oscar Valdez, he's actually kind of athletic and fast, even though we think of him as this tough Mexican with a big left hook. And yet he gets hit a lot. And someone like Errol Spence, who doesn't do as much as that, who kind of just uses the high guard. Sometimes he steps off, keeps it long. He'll do his own little shoulder roll here and there, especially if he got the reach on you. But yeah, despite that, Valdez gets hit a lot. But I actually think he's got enough moves in his defensive arsenal that he could get his head off the line when that uppercut's coming and bang, come back up with the hook like the kid from Australia, Wilson, did to Navarrete and hurt him. So I got Valdez in that fight. So what's up, Bostons? Como stai? How you doing, Bostons? Good to see you, man. Let me say what's up to some people in the chat, man. Errol Spence got that elite high guard. Winky Wright, Esco. Winky Wright, right behind me. King of the high guard. And Winky Wright probably got the all-time defense for you to study if you're just learning boxing and learning the fundamentals, because it's very adept and difficult to get head movement down and the timing to have an anticipation to get your head off the way and all that. But anybody with some hard work, could learn the high guard, and no one did it better than Winky. So Errol Spence got one of the best high guards. What I love about Canelo's high guard is Canelo is one of the most flexible fighters I've ever seen out of the high guard. That's what's unique about Canelo Alvarez to me. That is his signature, his sauce that he put on it. Because all great fighters take from the past, but they all have something unique or subtle to them that makes them them. And what's unique and subtle about Canelo is, for the most part, if you know your boxing, you have to sacrifice the high guard outside of Mike Tyson with Cus D'Amato and Floyd Patterson, and there's been some other early Pacquiao would do that, but outside of that, for the most part, if you want that flexibility and vision and upper body flexibility, usually that lead hand has to come down, a la the shoulder roll or something. Shoulder roll isn't always just how Floyd held it. Like I said, that was his subtlety, his sauce. Bernard Hopkins, James Toney, they hold the left hand even lower. They almost hold their lead hand straight down, whereas Floyd protects the mid with it when he does his. Toney and Hopkins will just leave that lead hand all the way low. So what Canelo brought to the game that was different is, outside of Tyson and a few others, usually high guard limited your flexibility with your upper body movement. And Canelo is unique in that he's got that upper body movement while keeping the high guard, and he's a counterpuncher on the front foot. Most counterpunchers, you're coming to them and they're countering what's coming to them. He comes on the front foot and counters. So that's what makes Canelo unique, and that's part of why he's the favorite against Jermall Charlo, if and hopefully when they fight. So, but let me say what's up to some people. Wilson, I thought Castano won the first fight. Different Charlo. I thought he won it too. But then Jermell did his thing in the rematch, kind of like Ward Kovalev. What's up, Raphael32? What's up, brother? Just reading some of the chat before we keep it moving. Why is Canelo ducking David Benavidez so much? It's a very difficult fight, and if there's potentially easier fights that you can make before getting to that difficult fight, business-wise, you make them. All right, I got a super chat to get to. The one ALV, what's up, brother? Good to have you in the chat again, man. I ain't seen you in a minute. What's up, Sean? I would love to hear your opinion on Canelo versus Lara. Who did I think won that fight? And happy early birthday to your son. Thank you, brother. My son's turning 4 years old. He's got his big birthday party tomorrow. Sonic-themed birthday party, so everybody got to wear Sonic. Gonna have Sonic posters throughout, and all. My wife, she does it real big, so you know how those good women do. They build it up real nice for the kids. So Canelo Lara, let's revisit that for just a moment, because thank you for the super chat, ALV. So Canelo Lara, I'll give you my thoughts right now. Canelo Lara Lara let that fight get away from him. Canelo, coming off the Mayweather fight, was struggling mightily with Lara's hand speed, movement. His 1-2s down the pipe were landing at will in the first 3 rounds. But Canelo, coming off the Mayweather fight, kept his composure. You could tell he didn't start pressing too hard. And then Canelo in the 4th round began to hurt Lara to the body. In the 7th round, he split Lara's eye with an uppercut. I remember that. And when I went back and rewatched that fight, I did notice Canelo's body shots were having an effect on Lara. He wasn't just landing them, he was hurting Lara. And he was getting Lara's respect enough with those body shots that Lara let the fight get away from him. Lara, knowing he's the B-side, knowing he's fighting this cash cow in Vegas, should have closed the show strong. And when the fight was there to be won, instead of throwing that extra 1-2 down the pipe that he was landing at will, he stepped off to the side, because throwing that 1-2 meant he was in range to eat that body shot. And so more times than not, in the championship rounds with the fight on the table, Lara sidestepped when he should have nailed Canelo down the pipe with those 1-2s he was landing all night, and he didn't. And I feel that Canelo wasn't really effective enough to get the win, but Lara let the fight get away from him as well. I felt that fight should have been a draw, 114-114. That's how I felt. But I never thought it was a robbery. Lara made Canelo look bad early. Lara at that time was an excellent fighter. That wasn't the Lara that lost to Jarrett Hurd. That was Lara in his prime. He was a bad boy at 154 at that time. Nobody wanted to fight him, and Canelo did. And that was Canelo's last fight with Showtime until he returned in 2021 for the Caleb Plant undisputed fight. But rewatching that fight recently, I felt Canelo was hurting him to the body, hurting him enough that Lara started stepping out of range when he shouldn't have, and he let that fight get away from him. So thank you for the super chat, ALV. I got another few to get to, I think. Hope I didn't lose them. Hold on. Yeah, 2 more by my man Raider Reaper again. Thank you, brother, throughout. Raider Reaper saying that it was the headbutt that busted open Plant is when he slowed down, in my opinion. Post that clip of Canelo saying that about Spence. Should generate a lot of views. Okay, let me try and find it. It's not going to be easy off top because it was some years ago, but let me see if I can find it still. Canelo Spence fight hype. Man, I would really have to comb through. It's not going to be easy to find it here. Well, here's where he said that Crawford was going to win that fight. You know, I'm sorry, Raider Reaper. I'm going to have to come back to it. Maybe that... let's see. Let me circle back to that, Raider Reaper. See if I can find that a little bit later on. But the headbutt that opened Plant's clutch, I don't think that's why Plant slowed down. Plant slows down. That's just what he does. He slows down in the second half of fights. Even fights where he's dominant, like Caleb Truax hit him with some uppercuts in the second half of that fight. Uzcategui got to him and hurt him late in their championship rounds in their fight. Canelo stopped him because he began to fade. Plant moves a lot. And when you're not able to make guys miss in the pocket often, and you got to use your feet a lot, that's what a lot of the great professional trainers would call a little bit of an amateur habit that you take with you from being a top amateur, is using your feet excessively to get out of the way of shots. And when you do that, when you move as much as Plant does, you know, you could gas yourself out for the second half of the fight. De La Hoya wasn't able to close the show against Trinidad in the championship rounds because them legs, he said his legs were burning like he never felt before in his life because of how much he was moving. I think that's why Plant faded. I think that's mostly why Plant faded. I just think that's who he is as a fighter. And Benavidez has very good conditioning. And he gets better as fights goes along. So, and he made some adjustments. He stopped reaching as much, started countering Plant and kind of countering the counterpuncher a little bit there. So, but no, thank you, Raider Reaper. And then for the Canelo Errol Spence video, I will find it eventually, brother. I'll circle back to it. So it's just not going to be easy. There's thousands of videos that involve those two names. So Christian Salvador, thank you so much, brother, for the super chat again. Christian Salvador said, you're actually a great critic. You're always objective for the most part. There's a few out there. Paul Williams, Margarito, Winky Wright, the most avoided. I think you're touching on Floyd again. And yeah, to me, Floyd is top 10 pound for pound all time, the best fighter of his era. But yeah, I think Winky Wright would have beat him in 05 if he went up to 0. I don't hold Margarito against Floyd because when he opted to fight Baldomir instead of Margarito, Baldomir was the lineal champ. I mean, we all know he was a very weak lineal champ, but it's not Floyd's fault that Zab Judah dropped the bag and lost to Baldomir and made him champion. I'm never going to knock you for saying, nah, I'm not going to fight this guy. I'm going to fight the champion of the division. Even if my boxing brain knows the guy without, like right now at flyweight, that would be the case with Estrada and the Japanese kid Nakatani. In my mind, the Japanese kid, the tall Japanese kid Nakatani, he's the best 115-pounder in the world. But he's not the champion. That's Estrada. So I can never knock someone for saying I'd rather fight the champion rather than the toughest fight in the division. And also, Margarito was coming off an L to Paul Williams. He lost his Boogeyman versus Boogeyman fight. That was the battle of the Boogeymen at 47. Paul Williams, Margarito, and he lost. He lost, and then Floyd had bigger fish to fry with De La Hoya and had a lineal title to win. So that's what happened, and then Margarito wound up becoming disgraced anyways. Paul Williams, I do get it. He was way too high a risk for way too low a reward. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and act like if I was Floyd Mayweather or managing Floyd Mayweather, I wouldn't have made the same decision. But just to keep some context here so that we don't treat the man like a god, yeah, I think Paul Williams would have beat him at welterweight too. So, but he has the right to say TBE. He's got his claim. It's a very easy claim to make, and he's no doubt on that top 10 greatest fighters of all time, probably on my Mount Rushmore. So yeah. Why is Benavidez ducking Morrell now? He's not ducking Morrell. I can clarify that. I'm pretty close to the situation. My critics would say, "Oh, come on, man, you love David Benavidez. Of course you're going to say he's not ducking Morrell." But I mean, I talked to Benavidez and I talked to people close to these fights at times, and from what I can gather, and I'm keeping it 100 with you, they're trying to make the Munguia fight first and foremost because Munguia is an easier fight for more money. But if they can't make that fight, I won't tell you who said this quote, but a quote from someone extremely close to Benavidez Morrell said, "And if the Munguia fight can't happen, quote, then we'll go after Morrell's bitch ass." I won't tell you who from Team Benavidez said that, but that's the direct quote to me from Team Benavidez. You know, they're trying to make the Munguia fight because Munguia, Mexican fighter, sells more tickets than Morrell, who's still trying to be that first Cuban fighter to cross over in the United States. So, first and foremost, they're trying to get the bigger fight. That's easier for more money. And if they don't, then they'll go the David Morrell route. Now, if David Benavidez's next fight isn't Jaime Munguia and isn't Demetrius Andrade, and it's not David Morrell, then you could say he's ducking David Morrell. Go for it. We'll have a good talk about it here on the live, here on the stream, because Morrell's the kind of guy you do think about ducking if you're a businessman, because he's, even though he's green, even though I think Benavidez would beat him right now because Morrell would literally be entering his 10th professional fight. He's green and unseasoned. No matter how talented he is, he still has holes in his game that need to be shored up through ring experience. But he's a tremendous talent, so he could beat Benavidez. But that's how I know. That's what I know for sure is going on right now. Trying to make the Munguia fight happen, but if it doesn't happen, then they will go with the David Morrell fight. It's just that the David Morrell fight, in my opinion, is a fight that should be made maybe 2 years from now. Morrell has had 9 fucking fights, and part of me has heard that the reason why there's a rush to make it happen is Samson Lukowicz has percentages on both guys, on Benavidez and Morrell, so he wants to make money off both sides and make it now while he has a percentage off both fighters. So we'll see. But realistically, I feel like that's the first Morrell. I feel like Morrell, if given time and patience and a good build, he's the first Cuban that's going to connect in the United States because he's young, he's exciting, he's learned English already pretty well. Decent looking kid, good looking kid. And so I think if you just give Morrell some time, him and Benavidez could be a real pay-per-view fight. It's already a pay-per-view fight now. It'll do 100-something thousand buys, and it's the best fight that could be made at 68 outside of Canelo and Benavidez, but I still don't think it's time yet. So, but we'll see. I got a couple super chats to get to. 2 from my man Christian Salvador. Christian Salvador is a baller. He's dropped like $50 in the chat. So, Christian Salvador said the only good fight Matchroom has in place in the U.S. lately are the 115-pound fights. When will Gallo Estrada fight again? I don't know when Gallo's fighting again. I have a feeling Gallo is going to fight the winner of Saturday's fight between Franco and Ioka. And shame on Josh Franco, man. Nice kid from Texas, sweet kid and all, but shame on him coming 6 pounds overweight for Ioka, who's already a little 115-pounder coming up from 108 earlier in his days, already bigger than this guy by a lot, and now you're 2 weight classes bigger than him. That's disgraceful. I know it's a big fight in Japan and there's money on the table, but Ioka's people should think about pulling him out of that fight. Ioka, he ain't winning that fight fighting a kid that big. So really, that's the only fight Matchroom has. Matchroom has failed in the United States, and Eddie Hearn, I got love for Eddie Hearn. When I had a seizure at Canelo versus Jacobs, and I had to go to the hospital that day because of my stupid seizures, Eddie Hearn got on the mic and wished me well in front of the whole media room. So I personally, I have love for the man, and I think he's a cool dude. I think for being a rich billionaire, he's pretty down to earth. But his game plan wasn't very sound in attacking the United States market, thinking that as this. I also wish he understood how bad the optics of what he was doing is. It's one thing for like in Citizen Kane, William Randolph Hearst back in the 20s and the 30s, and he bought out all the journalists at all the big papers in the United States because he had so much money. He literally went up to these journalists and threw down wads of cash and said, "You work for me now." And they were like, "Yeah, I do," you know. And Eddie Hearn thought that's how he was going to get the game in the United States. He thought, look, green is what everyone's loyal to. So, allegedly, if in fact he did have deeper pockets offering fighters from PBC and Top Rank and other promoters. And so he thought that's what he was going to do. How much is Al Heyman paying you? Oh, here's double. You fight for Eddie Hearn now. And maybe Eddie being a Brit, not being from America, I wish he understood how bad the optics in the United States of a rich white man with a rich father coming over to the United States and trying to sabotage the business of a black man promoting black fighters and telling them, because I have all this money, you're going to fight for me now. I wish I could have told him on the rooftop that day in New York City, piece of advice, don't attack it that way. It's not going to work. And it didn't. So Matchroom is in trouble right now in the United States. They have Regis Prograis, they have Bam Rodriguez, they have Gallo Estrada. Maybe they lured Devin Haney over for the WBC 140-pound fight with Regis, but they have nothing that could keep Haney there outside of that one fight. So they're in trouble, you know, and that's all there is to it. I don't root for any of these companies. I root to see the fights that make me excited to pull up to the arena that night. So that's that. And again, I mentioned earlier about PBC. Not to be some PBC dick rider. Look, their original plan was to be to have pay-per-view level fights on free network television. And they did that initially. Sean Porter versus Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia. Errol Spence had a CBS in the afternoon. It's got millions of viewers when he knocked out Leonard Bundu in Coney Island. They were doing their thing, but apparently weren't doing their thing good enough for CBS to invite him back, for NBC to invite him back, for Spike TV, Bounce, fledgling channels, to everyone but Showtime, even Fox. I'm not saying PBC's done with Fox. That's not necessarily true, but they haven't done fights with Fox in several months. And so maybe down to their last network, they're playing their best chips. So that's smart. It's working, So, not to just to dump on Matchroom and to keep everything in perspective. PBC's on top. They've been on top. They're cooking when people thought they were cooked. But, we don't want to go overboard the other way either. We got to keep proper context of everything. Got a couple super chats to get to. Let me see here. Christian Salvador. Oh, my bad. Saw that one. My man Christian Salvador again said, I was at thank you for the super chat, brother. I was at StubHub for Paul Williams versus Antonio Margarito. What a fight. But going back to your other comment, the Japanese 115-pound fighter is dangerous, but he doesn't have the resume like Gallo from 108 to 115, Sean. No, he doesn't. No, I mean, Gallo is probably going to go to the Hall of Fame. He is going to go to the Hall of Fame in all likelihood when he retires. Gallo is a proven great fighter in those flyweight divisions. But the question isn't who's more accomplished. The question isn't who's more accomplished. The question is who would win right now between Nakatani and Gallo, and I think it'd be Nakatani. Gallo started in a few weight classes lower than where he's competing at now. So did Nakatani, but he's like De La Hoya at 130 and 135. You know, he's just this skinny guy in his early mid-20s, sucking down when his body could get away with it, and he's really a natural weight, much bigger than the weight he's fighting at. So even though Gallo has way better resume than Nakatani and has done so much in his career and is a Hall of Famer, if they fought today, I think the younger, bigger, fresher guy with the monster left hand, Nakatani, I think he wins that fight. It'd be a great fight. It'd be a tough fight for him, but I think he wins that fight. I think he's the best 115-pounder in the world, Junto Nakatani. I got a super chat from my man Charles. Charles, thank you for the super chat. Charles saying, if David Morrell beats David Benavidez, would it hurt his shot at fighting Canelo? Oh, yeah, it's out the window. I really think Morrell's skill set can give Benavidez problems. Of course it could give Benavidez problems because his footwork and hand speed, athleticism, could give him some of the same problems Caleb Plant gave him. But unlike Caleb Plant, he's a stronger guy, a better puncher than Caleb Plant. He matches a lot of the physicality Benavidez is when Plant could not. Plant couldn't match the strength and the punching power of Benavidez and some of the size too, even though they're almost the same height. Morrell physically is as big as David. He punches hard in both hands. And then he has the sweet feet like Caleb Plant. Problem is, Caleb Plant more crafty, more seasoned than Morrell, and a better jab, more educated jab than David Morrell. David Morrell, much better offense in terms of power shots, combinations. Better combination puncher than Caleb Plant. Punches harder with both hands than Caleb Plant, but doesn't have the educated jab and doesn't have that savvy and seasoning to him that Plant had by the time he fought Benavidez, and those count for something too. Ultimately, I think Morrell's a more dangerous fight, but he might get figured out better than David. And David feels, if you watch my interview with him, that Morrell's leaky in between punches. He's leaky in between punches, and David keeps it tighter in the exchanges. When both guys open up, being leaky in between shots, throwing from your waist, and not having this up here while you do it, and you know, sometimes punching like nothing's coming back. And you're going to develop that habit against overmatched guys early in your career a little bit, you know, until someone does hit back, you know, that will hurt Morrell. But yeah, if Morrell beats Benavidez, the Canelo fight's probably out the window, and people will start saying, give the shot to Morrell. And I agree with you that Morrell could definitely give David problems because of his feet, his size, his athleticism, his pop in both hands. Another super chat to get to from my man, again, the one ALV saying, Munguia versus Golovkin would have been fire. Golovkin also should have fought Charlo. Yeah, but, you know, business. One's with fucking DAZN, the other's with PBC. You know how that goes. I don't think anyone was ducking there. I feel like GGG never got pressured or questioned why he never fought those two. Well, the Munguia fight got called off by the California State Athletic Commission when Munguia was 21. So that's why that fight didn't happen. Technically, Golovkin did agree to fight Munguia. I mean, it was Munguia at 22 years old, coming up from 154 pounds, so of course he agreed to fight him. Golovkin probably would have wrecked Munguia around that time. You know, he's 22, he's a baby. And, yeah, that fight would have been fire. And it never happened because Golovkin became only motivated by Canelo. Golovkin should have fought Andrade. DAZN should have made that fight. Easily. DAZN should have made Andrade Golovkin, but I guess they were afraid that Andrade would win that fight, and then they couldn't have their overestimated windfall of cash in the Canelo Golovkin 3. The only time Canelo Golovkin 3 was going to make big money is if they would have done it ASAP back in 2019. Not 3 or 4 years later after Golovkin's 40 years old and has fought subpar opposition and almost lost to Derevianchenko. And then Charlo wanted that fight. That's a fight Charlo wanted. But Golovkin signed that 6-fight, $100 million deal with DAZN, and Charlo's with PBC, so that was that. That was that. I actually think Charlo could have won that fight because bigger than Triple G, could match the jab of Triple G, and was younger and more athletic than Triple G, faster hands. I think Charlo could have beaten Golovkin the last couple years, but it didn't happen for those reasons. Remember, skills pay the bills. Gallo versus Pumita. I hear you, Christian Salvador. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Christian Salvador must be on his Viva Mexico. He's not playing around. He's not tolerating any Gallo Estrada slander, but I just think the kid Junto Nakatani would get him. That left hand's a motherfucker. I got a super chat from Anunnaki and the history. I can't read the rest of the name, but Anunnaki. What was that? The Giants from yesteryear, or it was a race of people, right? That left behind knowledge or something. Anyways, thank you, Anunnaki. Haney versus Tio for all the belts. I give the edge to Haney because Teofimo is better as a counterpuncher. Teofimo's better against the Lomas, against the Josh Taylors, against the guys bringing the fight to him, and he gets to be the athletic counterpuncher. When Tio has to cut distance, and he tries to cut distance but doesn't pick his hands up when he does it, he gets caught. He gets caught walking into right hands, like against Sandor Martin, like against George Kambosos. And then even Nakatani, who doesn't, isn't a counterpuncher, but he's just so tall that Tio wasn't allowed to just stay back and have him walk in and let him come to him and do what he does best, but at times had to cut distance against Nakatani because he was so tall. He didn't look so hot in that fight. So if Tio could take a page out of Lomachenko's book, now Lomachenko fights out of the high guard. He's a southpaw, so his hand lines up to more easily smother Haney's best punch, his jab, and then he comes in the high guard. He knows how to cut distance and keep his hands up. He doesn't fight off the back foot. He's not a counterpuncher like Tio. But if Tio could take a page out of Lomachenko's book, and that's cut distance responsibly so that he can force exchanges, he could hurt Haney and win the, if he can make it more of a fight where they open up an exchange, Tio can win because he could hurt Haney and he could win those exchanges. But if it's a boxing match on the outside and Haney is allowed to dictate behind his jab, then Haney's going to win a decision. And I lean towards Haney to win a decision, Haney versus Tio. But I hope Tio gets the money he's looking for from Top Rank, and I hope Haney goes back with Top Rank and that they make that fight. I would first and foremost be all for Haney and Davis, because that's the biggest fight to make, is Haney and Tank. But if Devin isn't 110% at lightweight anymore, he's got to move up because there's no do-overs. There's no do-overs. You got to be 110% for the Shakur Stevensons and the Tank Davises. And if you're not at 135 pounds, don't do a disservice to yourself. Go to 140 where you are 110%, where you are your best self. And there's still lots of great fights there, like Tio. So thank you for the super chat, brother. I got a super chat from my man Drool Titan. Drool Titan said they will promote Canelo's fights during NFL season with this deal. Just watch, says Drool Titan. Huh. Drool Titan, that would mean Canelo on Fox? I guess you're throwing me for a loop because Canelo in the Instagram post. Let me look that up. Canelo in the oh shit, my mouse dead? No, I'm good. Canelo in the Instagram post, he did just show that it was an agreement with PBC, but nothing about Showtime. So let me go back to that Instagram post for a second. Yes, I am Sean Z Boxing. That's me. Follow me on Instagram. Okay. Damn, Erickson Lubin getting turned up. God damn it. Search. I'm sorry for the GDs. I know a lot of people in the chat, they're not happy with me when I say GD. I can't help it. It's an old habit from watching South Park growing up. Canelo, where's your Twitter? Where's your Instagram, brother? Let me just Google this. Because the Drool Titan saying they'll promote Canelo's fights on the NFL, that would mean that you think, Drool Titan, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't got to send a super chat. I'll look for you in the chat. Are you saying Canelo's going to fight Charlo on Fox? Ooh. See, that's why the whole time I didn't say PBC's done with Fox. I didn't say that. I just said they haven't had him for they haven't done business for some months now, but let me see. No. Damn. Is there an image posted of it? I'm trying to look for that image that confirmed he's going to PBC, but nothing. 3 days ago in Italy. No. All right, well, someone will have it. Maybe Twitter has it. Hold up. Canelo PBC. Where's that photo he shared though? Let's see. Here it is. Here it is. So, to Drool Titan's point, he thinks they're going to promote the Canelo fights on the NFL, which would mean Fox. And if you look here, it does say, see you soon, Premier Boxing Champions. It doesn't say anything about Showtime yet, but I would think Canelo Charlo is still going to be a Showtime thing. But maybe Al Heyman has pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and maybe Al Heyman has gone back to Fox with some of these Tank Ryan numbers, for example, and is saying, "You sure? You sure you don't want none of this? You sure you don't want this? You sure you don't want Canelo? You sure?" So we'll see. We shall see. Let me check though with Drool Titan to see if he got back to me. The one ALV said they would have to pay millions for commercials and promotions, so I doubt it. Dane Sampson asking, Sean, do you think Mayweather would have beaten Andrade in 2014 at 154 when Andrade was WBO at the time? Maybe not, because Andrade so much bigger, was in his physical peak. Floyd was winding down at that time. Andrade may very well have beaten Floyd at that time. Reza Jamshidi said, Sean, you're my guy. Why are other reporters seem to be afraid of Canelo about pushing him to fight Benavidez? Well, Canelo's a little scary in person. The guy is intense. He's pretty buff. It's not always easy. They are the best fighters in the world after all. So every now and then you tread a little lightly, But, all jokes aside, it's not easy asking them it just so happens that I feel comfortable asking Canelo tough questions because Canelo, to me, has kind of matured in the last couple of years. He could take it. Whenever I see Canelo after I ask him a tough question, he's nice to me the next workout. So obviously he doesn't take it personal. So that kind of encourages me, like, okay, this guy kind of gets it. Like, he gets that it's my job. Let me just ask him some tough questions then, because he don't care. And but with fighters that do care, and Canelo does care. He ended the press conference after I asked him about Benavidez, but it just could be tough when you're going to get some pushback. And sometimes you're not even worried about the pushback from the fighter. You're worried about the pushback from the public. When I asked Tank Davis the questions that inevitably got him to reveal that there was a mole in Ryan Garcia's camp, everybody in the comments before that whole narrative blew up was calling me an intrusive asshole. Like, damn, leave this man alone. You're asking too many questions. And why are you asking this? Why are you asking that? We talk about how much athletes get criticized, but they also get love. They also get people to spend $300 to wear their name on the back of their person. The people also spend pay-per-view money to watch them fight. People also spend $600 to watch them throw a football or dribble a basketball. Media guys, you always the bad guy. You're the bad guy to the fans. You're the bad guy to the athlete. You're the bad guy to the PR people. So sometimes it's hard to ask the real questions just to keep it real. And so there you go. Holy shit, I got a monster super chat from Christian Salvador. Oh my God. Christian Salvador, brother, you are too man, I feel Christian Salvador just donated $50 to the super chat. Thank you, brother. I don't worst question you ever asked a fighter, Sean? I'm sure I've asked some stupid ass questions, Colin Ruiz. I'll think about it. So anyway, Christian Salvador, you can say is the flag Mexico, how can I not be a Gallo fan? All the great wars he has been in. Remember what he did to Soren Visai in LA? I was there. He beat Soren Visai. After Run Visai, stop Chocolatito, not Maloney. There's levels to it. That Japanese is a big 115. Let's see him fight Neri at 118. Christian Salvador, I'm feeling the Viva Mexico pride right now, brother. I'm actually starting to feel like I need to tread lightly. Even though you obviously got love for your boy. You donated a $50 super chat, but you also sound like you're on the brink of wanting to whoop my ass if I keep saying that Nakatani beats guys from Mexico. But I'm going to say it anyways. I think Nakatani would beat Neri at 118. Neri's good. But that Figueroa fight, he broke in that Figueroa fight. And I know Figueroa's bigger than Nakatani. And I know Neri is a small guy. He's better at 118 than 122. And Figueroa is a featherweight champion now, and Nakatani's a skinny 115 pounder. So don't get me wrong, both are competitive fights, and they might get underneath on that tall frame. And we know how great fighters from Mexico do. They'll kill you to the body. But I think Estrada's the tougher fight at 15 than Neri at 118. I think Estrada's a great fighter, and Neri's good. That war he had with Azat, Hovhannissian, that was a fucking war. But Hovhannissian was piecing him up. Hovhannissian, without the kind of athleticism and range and height and speed and on that left hand that Nakatani has, he was able to find the mark against Luis Neri all the time. So Nakatani's going to find the mark, and it's going to be bigger bombs than what Hovhannissian was hitting him with, who was very competitive. I think Nakatani would beat Neri. I think Estrada is a more competitive fight. That's a tough fight for Nakatani. Estrada could beat him. He could beat him. I'm not saying he wouldn't. But I give the edge to that tall kid from Japan. That kid's a problem. That left hand is a problem. I've been saying it since I covered him ringside 2021 when he came to the States on the Inoue undercard against Das Marinas, and I said, that kid's got a left hand. So, no, thank you so much, though, Christian Salvador. I feel like I owe you more than just words, but thank you, brother. I have another super chat to get to. Oh, man, Christian Salvador again saying, thank you for the super chat saying, we paid thousands of dollars for ringside tickets. Happy birthday to your son. Thank you, Christian. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. We go all out for his birthday parties, too. We get the jumpy house, the face paint, the taco guy. We order the best pizza, get him some good presents. And then actually, I think my man Sean Porter will be around. So I don't think I'm doing a round by round tomorrow night for the J-Rock Adames fight, because I'm going to have so much company over for my son's birthday. And we'll probably all just finish eating some tacos and watch the J-Rock Adames fight. You would think J-Rock's chin with Adames' punching power is a really bad mix for J-Rock, but J-Rock, if he could turn back the clock and be his best self and not the guy who lost last year on an undercard to untelevised undercard to a guy with 4 losses, if J-Rock could be that guy that upset Rosario, then maybe he could upset Adames. But on paper, it doesn't look good for J-Rock, and I like J-Rock. He's got some really good skills when he's firing on all cylinders, but his punch resistance has been a problem since 54. Now he's at 60 against a puncher. That probably doesn't bode well, but we'll see. I'll be watching the fight with family and friends. Raider Reaper said, just ordered my undisputed Canelo Alvarez shirt. You got merch? I do. I got it's downstairs, but I got the Canelo No Boxing No Life sweater. I got that. I got the Muhammad Ali sweater on. Actually, chat, this hoodie's pretty fire. I'm gonna show you. That's hold on. But that's hold up. Oh. Beautiful stream we have. High Tech Studios here at the FightHype headquarters in Las Vegas, Nevada. But let me turn this one around instead of doing that. Hold up. This is an Ali sweater with and that's Ali standing over Liston. So yes, I got the Canelo No Boxing No Life sweater. I got a couple fighters gear, but I don't really wear it unless it's like Ali, because I'm not trying to seem biased for any guy, any fighter. So I don't wear the fighters merch on camera, but I do got some. I got some Canelo, some Devin Haney, some Loma. I think I got a Lomachenko shirt. I got a Shakur shirt from one of his fights. Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Of course, I got a couple Sean Porter shirts. Yeah, I got some merch. But you're saying FightHype merch? Nah, I don't know. I don't know, man. We don't have any merch. I think we should. I would be down to rock a FightHype Letterman jacket or a FightHype starter, like a satin with the red and black FH, red, black, and white. That'd be kind of fire, man. You gotta talk to the head honcho, man. That stuff costs money to commission. I certainly don't run FightHype. That would be the boss man, my man Ben Thompson, BT the Great, Ben Heyman. So hit up the FightHype Instagram and the FightHype Twitter if you guys want some merch to start going on sale. Adam, let them know. What size are the cool grays? Yeah, we're winding down now, chat. Looks like we're starting to wind down if we're going to start talking about the cool grays again. Cool grays. Little fun factoid. Size 14. I think the same size as Michael Jordan. So what's cool for me is when I buy my Jordans, I'm buying them in Jordan size 14. He might be a 15, but I think he's a 14. A black hoodie with red FightHype would be fire. It would. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'm down for some FightHype official merch. But all right, chat. I think we touched on a lot today, man. Canelo's not really taking the fight everyone wants to see at 68, which is Benavidez, but Charlo is a fight that has been a marquee fight for over half a decade. And Charlo is still undefeated. And even though he's got 2 years off of activity, he still has a great jab, still can counter and lead, and he's big, and he's athletic, and he's never been down, and has had half as many fights as Canelo, so the ring rust sucks, but he's had less wear and tear, less mileage, no injuries like Canelo. Canelo's had some knee problems, had some hand problems, so we'll see, man. I'm excited for the fight. I'm actually excited to see Canelo and Charlo. Rudolfo said, Eddie Hearn just signed Yuri Boy Campas and Ricky Hatton's third cousin. In your face, PBC. Hey, man, Yuri Boy Campas making a comeback. He dropped Trinidad. He had enough heart to give the young lion Fernando Vargas some shine. He went some rounds with De La Hoya in 03. Let's not sleep on Yuri Boy Campas. He could change the game. Christian Salvador, thank you so much again, brother. Man, at this point, save your money, Christian Salvador. I'm not worthy. You've already spent enough. Thank you, brother. Christian Salvador saying, I will see you at Spence vs. Crawford. I will be with Pitbull Cruz if you need a translator. Oh, thank you so much, man. I interviewed Pitbull. Pitbull don't like to talk, though. That's the problem. He's a fighter. He's all about the action, the smoke. He doesn't really like talking, and I'll try to wind him up. I'll try to get some quotes out of him, get him going about Ryan Garcia, and all you're going to get out of Pitbull Cruz is, yeah, let's do it. I'm down to fight. He's not going to give you... If he's in the mood, he might talk some trash about this guy or that guy, but for the most part, he's just a straightforward, I want to fight, I want to come and get him. So, no, thank you, Christian Salvador. We might have to let's do an interview with Pitbull Fight Week for sure. I just don't know how good it's going to be because Pitbull isn't a big talker, as you know. So, fire in my bones. Peace out, brother. I'm sorry I didn't get to... There's a lot of super chats today, Fire in My Bones. I didn't get to see too much of what you were saying today, brother. Thank you, Fire in My Bones. Always great to have you. Keep checking back in, brother. You're one of the regulars along with Dane, my man Dane Sampson, Charles N., Raider Reaper's always in here. ALV's always in here. Kina Dimitrios, I just saw in here. So I've been reading these super chats, so I'm missing some people. Dimitrios is in the house. Colin Ruiz. We're missing a few. Matt's Adventures was in here earlier. Trying to look for some of my other regulars, but a few of them are missing today. Mr. Quake. Mr. Quake is in the house. Good to see Mr. Quake. We got Nino Brown. What's up, Nino Brown? AJ. What's up, AJ? I see you, AJ. Would have loved to have seen a prime Shane Mosley fight Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya while you're at it. Floyd deserves... A lot of Floyd's fights were a microcosm of De La Hoya and Mosley is kind of a microcosm of a lot of Floyd's fights where if you hate Floyd, you're gonna take away all the credit and be crazy. You're gonna, De La Hoya was shot, Mosley was shot. He fought everyone when they're old. That's not true. Mosley, again, this is where I come in with the proper context. Mosley was not in his prime. Mosley, at 38, was not the 28-year-old that beat Oscar De La Hoya in Staples Center in 2000. He wasn't. He did that kind of hand speed and explosive combination punching ability and foot speed. Not there at 38 by the time Floyd fought him. But when Floyd dominated him, he's fresh off maybe the greatest performance of his career, knocking out Margarito. But every great fighter has one last great fight in them. And that was it for Shane. That was it. And then he didn't fight for 18 months. So you keep proper context. It wasn't a prime Shane Mosley. It was a Shane Mosley 18 months out of the ring. But it was a Shane Mosley who was rated the #1 welterweight in boxing. It was a Shane Mosley that Freddie Roach and many people in boxing said Floyd was afraid to fight. It was a Shane Mosley that was still the WBA, and in some people's mind, not the Ring Magazine, but in a lot of people's mind, he was the lineal welterweight champion. Because when Floyd retired in 2007 and the belt went vacant, Cotto and Margarito were considered 1 and 2. And Margarito winning that fight made him the top welterweight, and so when Mosley knocked him out, it wasn't until Floyd beat Mosley that he restamped himself as the #1 welterweight. And then De La Hoya was the WBC champ. Still had juice and gas in the tank. De La Hoya that night, May 7th, 2007, May 5th, 2007, he would have still beaten Margarito that night. Him and Paul Williams would have been a hell of a fight. He would have beaten Cotto coming up from 47, too little at that time for Oscar. So Oscar was still a bad boy, but he wasn't receding hairline, little skinny fat, jiggling on above the trunks. His legs not quite the same, hand speed not quite the same. Still a dangerous bad boy at 154 pounds, naturally bigger guy than Floyd, making Floyd put on the Reyes gloves. So, those two fights are a great microcosm of a lot of Floyd's fights, where it's like, no, Pacquiao wasn't in his peak anymore. De La Hoya wasn't in his peak anymore. Mosley wasn't in his peak anymore. Cotto wasn't in his peak anymore. But they were all still top guys, many times coming off big wins. Cotto coming off the vengeance against Margarito. De La Hoya knocking out Mayorga to take the WBC strap. Mosley knocking out Margarito. Pacquiao dropped Algieri 6 times and beat Tim Bradley, who was a top 10 pound-for-pound guy. Beat him handily in a rematch. So, yeah, there you go. De La Hoya and Mosley wanted no parts of Floyd until they were later in their careers. I don't think so. I don't think so. I just think timeline... So Oscar was ducking Floyd to fight Felix Trinidad, Fernando Vargas, and Bernard Hopkins? No. He was busy doing big fights. The problem is Floyd's younger than them. Floyd comes about a half decade... De La Hoya gets his start in the early 90s. Shane in the early to mid 90s. Floyd becomes champion in 98. Mosley jumped up 2 weight classes to fight De La Hoya. Mosley's a welterweight by 2000. A welterweight by 2000. In the same year, Floyd Mayweather was 130 pounds. Floyd Mayweather wasn't a welterweight until 2006. So their timelines just didn't line up. De La Hoya, in the year 2000, like Mosley, he's a welterweight. By 2001, he's a junior middleweight. In 2001, Floyd Mayweather was fighting Diego Corrales at 130. So their timelines just didn't... Floyd wasn't aging them out, and they weren't ducking Floyd. Their timelines just worked out the way it was. It was nobody's fault. But I do wish that Floyd could have fought Shane and Oscar at their peaks, because I think those are 50-50 type fights. So, but we can't live in hypotheticals. We can only live in reality. And Floyd beat them both when he beat them, and he ranks higher than both of them all time, in part because of that. So, someone said, so you think Paul Williams in 07, Winky Wright in 05, an android in 2014 would have beaten Mayweather. I mean, it's about, like, you got to understand, if I feel that way, it's no slight to Floyd, because Joey Maxim beat Sugar Ray Robinson, the greatest fighter pound for pound, at light heavyweight. Sometimes if you go up to a weight too big, no matter how good you are, a certain guy can have your number. And Paul Williams was 6'1", 6'2". Winky Wright wound up fighting Bernard Hopkins at light heavyweight and held his own. You know, he was a legit 160-pound middleweight. You know, he was a big 154-pounder. And then Andrade, he's all the way up at super middleweight now. All three of those guys, Paul Williams, Winky Wright, Andrade, much bigger than Floyd Mayweather. And yeah, I think all three of those guys, Boo Boo in 2014 at 54, Paul Williams at welterweight in 07, Winky Wright at 54 and 05 when Floyd had never fought at 54 in his career. He had never fought at 47 in his career. Yeah, I think Floyd's human. Yeah, I think those guys could have beat him at those times, at those weights. Yes. You know? Like, Iran Barkley beat Tommy Hearns at 68. Iran Barkley ain't better than Tommy Hearns, but he had his number and he got him at a weight that Tommy wasn't really advantageous at. So, Reza Jamshidi says, Sean, do you think we see Canelo Benavidez eventually? Absolutely. I actually do. I think we see a Cinco de Mayo next year if... it's tough because even if David has to fight, even if Benavidez has to fight Morrell and he beats him, and Canelo gets past Charlo, both aren't the givens. There's still the monkey wrench of... There's still the problem of Errol Spence could beat Terrence Crawford, and now Canelo isn't even, and Reynoso aren't even thinking of Benavidez. They're thinking Canelo Spence. And Spence will jump up 3 weight classes, and he will take that fight because Errol Spence has let it be known it's about the money. First, second, and last. And the money would be him and Canelo would say, sure, I'd love to fight a welterweight coming up 3 weight classes. Let's do it. And Errol would tell himself, we're really the same size. We're really the same height. And I walk around at 180. Big Texas strong boy. So let's do it. So Benavidez has to hope a couple things happen. He has to hope Canelo beats Charlo, like he's favored to do. He has to hope he beats Morrell, like he would be favored to do, but in a very tough fight. And then he's kind of got to hope that Terrence Crawford beats Errol Spence, because if Errol Spence beats Terrence Crawford, then he's thinking. I mean, I know that Crawford has the rematch clause, but they're thinking Canelo all the way if Spence could get past Crawford. So we'll see. Paul Williams versus Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hearns all day. Paul Williams was excellent at welterweight, but Tommy Hearns punched much harder than him with that right hand, and had an even better jab. Paul Williams had a great jab, but Tommy Hearns' was even better. Tommy Hearns had a better jab, and he punched much harder with the right hand. Between the two tall guys, throwing a lot of Hearns all day. Shakur ducked Pitbull. Stop acting like you see it. Fight hype. Please don't be biased. Well, again, though, that's that. I mean, hey, Pitbull. You could say he ducked Shakur, but he can't make that fight. He's with Al Haymon PBC, and Shakur's with Top Rank. These guys, they sign contracts, and they kind of got to do what their promoter says and lines up for them. So even if Pitbull wanted to fight Shakur, and I think Shakur would beat Pitbull. I definitely think Shakur would beat. Pitbull's not an easy out for anybody. He's explosive. His hand speed's a little underrated because he's a short, little, stocky Mexican guy, so you don't think of him as having hand speed, but he does. He's fast. And, he's got a great inside game. One of the best in the sport at tucking his chin. But, yeah, I think Shakur would pick him apart and outbox him, sharpshoot him. But I can't say that Cruz is ducking him when he may not even have the ability to fight him even if he wanted because of promotional business stuff. Who won Paul Williams versus Lara? I actually always felt like Paul Williams, it got over. I only watched that fight once when it happened way back in 2009, 2010. But I felt like Williams, he throws a lot of punches, man. And I know Lara was smacking him over and over again with big straight left hand bombs. But in between those bombs, Williams would work. And it may not be as flashy as that big left hand smacking across the head every time, but that consistent work that he would do with his hands, maybe the judges like that. So I felt like when I watched that fight, it wasn't as big a robbery as everyone thought it was. But that was just me. Did Raider Reaper, did the details of the contract come out? Not yet. Not yet. So Shakur should fight Loma next. I feel like he's going to fight Jermaine Ortiz next. Maybe Loma, though. The problem with fighting Loma for Shakur is how much credit are you going to get? A lot of people thought he beat Haney. I scored it 115, 113 Loma, or 114, 114 a draw, depending on one of the rounds. But he didn't win the fight. Haney's the undisputed champ. So what do you really get out of beating him at this point? If you beat him, then you beat a guy coming off a loss. Disputed loss, high level, great fight loss, but a loss. So I feel for Shakur a little bit. He's a little stuck. He's not getting Tank. It's with the wrong. That's not happening promotionally. He's not getting Tank. Haney's moving up to 40, it would appear. Lomachenko's the best fight he could get, but he's coming off a loss. And then Teofimo, if he's not retired, which of course he's really not long term anyways. Maybe he'll stay retired for a year, maybe, but he's definitely lacing up boxing gloves again. He's at 40, so Shakur's in limbo right now a little bit. All he could do is stay sharp and perform like he did against Yoshino each time out. Yoshino was the perfect kind of guy to do that against, but ideally for Shakur, as he's keeping busy, he's not having Nakatia-like performances, and he's tearing that ass up, like pause, as he would say, like he did against Yoshino. So that's all he could do for now. Do I think Charlo can beat Canelo? I don't think he will. I picked Canelo, but he can, yes. He has an excellent jab. That's the punch that's always giving Canelo problems. He's an athlete. He's athletic. He's strong. He's undefeated. He's rusty, but he's got less mileage and injuries on him than Canelo. I don't count Charlo out. But it's like sometimes the business of boxing makes you think. It's like we didn't sign Canelo for 3 fights so he could lose his first time, and then we make money off a devalued asset in fight number 2 or 3. So you could look at it like they're feeding Charlo to him first before they get to the fights they really want to make, which is Spence, probably first and foremost, if I had to guess, and then Benavidez. But I think the plan A, the thinking big, is Spence beats Crawford, and we make Canelo Spence Cowboy Stadium 68 or Allegiant Stadium, something like that, and then of course Canelo Benavidez. So you think Shakur will fight Jorge Linares then next, or Luke Campbell? Well, Luke Campbell's retired. Jorge Linares is a Golden Boy fighter who holds no value right now for beating him. He hasn't won a fight in a long time, a meaningful fight. So there's no value in beating Linares these days right now. Shakur would be better served to fight Jermaine Ortiz than Linares. I mean, Jermaine Ortiz fucked up by not making weight his last fight, and he got canceled. So Shakur versus Gary Russell. Gary Russell's an Al Haymon fighter. He's not going to fight on Top Rank. It sucks. I hate. Don't shoot the messenger. What if Charlo beats him? Will the other 2 fights be as hype? No. Canelo will lose some luster, and that's what I mean. The design of the fight is not for Charlo to win. You don't want a devalued asset in fights number 2 and 3, like Eddie Hearn just had to deal with in the Ryder and the Golovkin fight, and the numbers went. Fighting Plant, he did almost 1 million buys, and I don't know the numbers on DAZN, but I'm sure Plant and Saunders and Canelo did strong numbers, did over 500,000 on DAZN pay-per-view buys, and then Golovkin did in the 3s, and then Ryder reportedly did in the 1s, and so that L, it hurts your stock. So you would think, even though PBC's built Charlo up, they love Charlo, Do they really want Charlo to win this fight and then have a devalued Canelo Alvarez in fights number 2 and 3? We shall see. What about Shakur versus Frank Martin? Great fight. Frank Martin's with Al Heyman. He's not going to fight on Top Rank. Vice versa. Shakur's with Top Rank. He's not going to fight Frank Martin on PBC. So that fight's not happening. Frank Martin is like Shakur on the PBC side. He's in limbo. They're not going to give him a Tank Davis fight because it's just Frank Martin has no name. He can't sell any tickets, but he can fight his ass off. That's the perfect mix to not get good fights. Is you don't sell tickets and you can fight your ass off. That's the perfect way to not get the big fights. So Shakur can sell some tickets. He sold I think like 8,000 to almost 10,000 in Atlanta. He sold over 10,000 when he fought Valdez and MGM. He sold over 10,000 in Newark. So he can sell a little something. He's not truly a draw yet, but he can sell a little something. But Shakur and Martin, it isn't even if it's not realistic. How do I see it playing out? I would favor Shakur. Martin started late at 18, and he's very seasoned, very crafty, and very skilled. For a guy that started at 18, Frank Martin is very skilled. I'm very impressed by his skill level. Look, it's one thing to start late at 18, and you have tremendous talent. You're a tremendous athlete. You punch very hard. You're fast. All those things. And Frank Martin is an excellent athlete, and he is strong and is fast. But his level of skill in that southpaw stance, his ability to counter, to punch in between punches in the exchanges, to sharpshoot, good defense with multiple moves on defense, not just some basic high guard, and not just relying on his feet to get out of range or twitchy reflexes. He could box. But all that said, I think Shakur would still beat him because it's tough. No matter how well he's done for himself starting at 18, it's tough to beat a thoroughbred Olympian, elite pound for pound pro starting at 18. That's tough. Southpaw versus southpaw. Frank hits harder than Shakur. He's stronger than Shakur. But Shakur is just so accurate. Got such a good defense right now. It would be a competitive fight. It would be the toughest fight of Shakur's career, but I think Shakur would still come out on top. So, but Frank Martin's a problem for anybody. Haney, Davis, both Davises, Keyshawn and Tank, Haney, Shakur, Lomachenko, anybody. Frank Martin's a tough fight for anybody. Brian Saldana corrected me saying Canelo's pay-per-view numbers versus Ryder was 450,000. I got to look that up. Maybe I shouldn't have been so loose with my mouth talking about in the 100s. I was repeating things people in the industry tell me, people that work for competing companies, so maybe I should have took it with a grain of salt. But to offer up another viewpoint, Brian Saldana saying Canelo's pay-per-view numbers versus Ryder was 450,000. Let's see. Boo Boo Andrade fight for Canelo in May could be a possibility. I'm hearing Boo Boo might fight Plant, but we'll see. Mayweather versus Canelo 2? Nah, no way Floyd's doing that. He would do Pacquiao 2 before he'd do Canelo 2, I would think. And I don't think either one's happening. Do you agree that Haney ducked Lomachenko for the rematch and ducked Shakur? First of all, Trust No Bitch, funny name. We can't really decide anything on Haney. He hasn't made a decision yet. His dad is literally weighing all options. He went to the Taylor Teo fight, and he went to the Regis Prograis fight. Bob Arum, I think, stated recently here on FightHype, talking to my man Hans Themistode out in New York, I think he said that they're considering the Lomachenko rematch now because Arum may offer a lot of money for that rematch because that first fight, I think it exceeded expectations a little bit. They sold out the MGM, and I think pay-per-view numbers, while not, shattering the earth or anything, I think they exceeded maybe even slightly above expectations. So I think Arum is down to do that Lomachenko rematch and put some money on the table. Haney's not ducking Stevenson or Lomachenko if he's not 100% at lightweight. Don't fight them, Devin. If you're not 100% at lightweight, if in fact that that trim down to 35 is starting to take its toll. You must move up, because against the best of the best, and that's definitely what Shakur and Tank are, you don't need to be 100%, you need to be 110%. And that goes for them against him as well. That goes for any elite fighter fighting any elite fighter. Against the best of the best, those career-defining fights, you better be at 110%. You don't want to be like James Toney against Roy Jones and for years have to talk about the weight. And that wasn't really me in there. You don't want to do that. So, first of all, I don't know if we don't even know what he's going to do. He might stick around 35 and fight Lomachenko next. He might. But if he doesn't stick around 35, and the God-honest reason is in part because he can't make that weight and be 100%, then he made the right decision. You have to go to 40, where you operate at the highest level. And then if he's at 40, Teofimo Lopez or Regis Prograis, and you can't get mad at that. Even Regis, who looked bad by his standards against Danielito Zorrilla, I thought he won that fight. It was a very boring fight, but he won the fight. You can't criticize that. Going up to 140 to fight for the glamour belt, the green belt, against a puncher in Regis Prograis, or going up to fight Tio, so we got to see what happens with Haney next. And there's a good chance that he's not fighting Prograis, Lopez, Stevenson, or Lomachenko or Davis next. There's a good chance he fights a Barboza next or a Jose Ramirez, because he want to get his feet wet at 140 pounds. And I understand that too, but Kina Dimitro saying, yeah, Regis' stock after this last fight is at an all-time low. But I always told you guys on the streams, Kina, you probably know from being on the stream, I always told you guys I favored Tio and Devin to beat Regis Prograis. So his last performance doesn't really change how I evaluate Haney and Prograis that much. Tunnel Vision said Devin isn't fighting anyone at 135, 140. He's going to sign to the Saudi group that is connected to Kinahan. Well, I hear a lot of guys. I hear Wilder. I've heard, let's wait and see, Tunnel Vision. If that's what happens, we'll treat it accordingly, but I hope not. Kina Dimitro saying he not fighting Ramirez. Okay. Ramirez ducked Regis. He did, but it was, again, that promotional shit, man. His company told him, we're not doing that fight. What's he supposed to do? If his company's not going to take the fight, they're not going to take the fight, man. I think that Jose Ramirez would have fought Regis Prograis if it could have been on ESPN and the money was fine? Yeah, I think he would have. But neither was the case, so it didn't happen. And if you want to call that a duck, you call it a duck. Nah, he ain't retired. Of course Tio's not retired. Of course not. Dub 100 said PBC's going to rob Crawford if Canelo's got a 3-fight deal. I mean, even without the Canelo deal, you would think Spence is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Not just because he's the A side who's younger and sells more and is with the company promoting the fight his whole career, but also because his work rate makes it tough to win a decision against him. He throws a lot of punches, does Spence. Now, throwing all those punches is going to let Crawford, the best counterpuncher in the game, do what he does best, find counter opportunities. And no one's made the final bell with Crawford since 2016, since Obama was president. So Crawford's going to have to be like Marvin Hagler and make his hands the judges to ensure he doesn't get robbed. But, we'll see. Would you have preferred if Andrade fought Canelo instead of Charlo since he's been more active? No, Kevin Da Silva. Honestly, no. Andrade, to me, is good for about 4 rounds these days, and then he starts to fade. And then his legs, which is, his great feet at 54, they're not there at 68. They were. Someone was asking me about Andrade back in 2014. And he was incredible, a great talent. A great talent at 154. Didn't get the fights to prove that talent, but he was a great talent at 154. The eye test says so. But he coasts after about 3 or 4 rounds. Usually he zaps his opponent with a hard left hand, hits him with some hard left hands early, gets their respect, and then he coasts. Elite fighters, he can't do that against as much. And his legs aren't the same. And Charlo is a harder puncher than Andrade, and stylistically, him and Canelo's a much more exciting fight than Andrade and Canelo. Charlo, with his size and his power in both hands, he's one of the few guys that I think will go mano-a-mano with Canelo in some of these exchanges. Even, I think that's what he is. He likes to throw combinations. He's got good power in his right hand, got a power jab. And I just think stylistically, you're going to get some fun exchanges in this fight. Neither guy's a big mover. So you're not going to see guys disengage out of range that much. You're going to see Charlo try to impose his jab. And if he can, he's in business. It starts with the jab for Charlo. That's the punch that Bivol used the best against Canelo, that Golovkin used the best against Canelo. Caleb Plant landed his jab somewhat in that fight too, although it got parried a lot by the great defense of Canelo. But no, I think Charlo is the much more exciting fight. And I think he's the tougher fight too, because Andrade would have been the tougher fight when his legs were fresher. But at 68, his legs are heavier, especially in the second half of the fight. Andre's still a difficult fighter, but no, I like the Charlo fight better for sure. More entertaining. Heading back to work, but really enjoyed the live, man. We'll be listening, but won't be chatting. Blessed day, FightHype. You too, Trust No Bitch. Thank you for being in the chat, brother. Come back again. So everyone hit the like if you haven't already. We're closing in on 2 hours. I got to get some things ready for my son's birthday tomorrow. I'm going to head out in a moment here. I would have played some Undisputed with Canelo, but I got some shit to do. Do I think Keith Thurman is going to retire if he doesn't fight Ugas Apollo? I've heard that Thurman Ugas is going to happen in August at 154 pounds. I favor Thurman in that fight. Yeah. So I don't think he's retiring. Reza Jamshidi, how long can the WBC stall Benavidez and not give him a chance to fight for the belt? Literally as long as they want, Reza. It's their belt. They make up rules as they go along, literally. Jermall Charlo hasn't fought in over 2 years, and they're like, you can still have your belt. We like you. So, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, we don't like you. We don't like Russia. We're not sanctioning that. So they can do whatever they want. Do I think Bronco Kid? Good to see you, Bronco Kid. Do I think we get Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz if they both win their fights? Zero chance, Bronco Kid. Happy to have you in the chat. Hate to shoot down such a wonderful fight, but no, zero chance. Absolutely zero chance. I get it. The 1% chance is that Golden Boy begrudgingly has worked with PBC this year. They made Ryan a tank. They made a lot of money. And now Heyman, and they're trying to make the Munguia fight, which is also a Golden Boy fighter. They're probably trying to negotiate with non-Oscar De La Hoya people, Zanfer, Miguel Beltran, Fernando Beltran, and the guys that promote Munguia alongside Golden Boy, kind of like they went through Lupe Valencia to make the Ryan fight not Oscar, not Oscar and Bernard. So I guess that's the one chance that happens, is like Golden Boy and PBC, even though they don't like each other, they're making so much money together that they're like, hey, let's do this Virgil Boots fight. But nah, I don't think so. That fight isn't a big fight yet to the mainstream public. I think both teams are more concerned with building up their fighter into a prized asset, into an asset that can make money. And neither guy is really that asset yet. Virgil, of course, with those Mexican fans, it's a little easier to build that asset up with that fan base. But no, I think 0% chance that you get Virgil and Boots next. Sorry. Sean, we want to see you on a Misfits card, says B. If they paid me, I'll get in shape and I throw them things. I try. Kevin De Silva has said a few times now that a jab is a counterpuncher's worst nightmare, and that's what Charlo has. He does, and that's why I don't count Charlo out of this fight. But someone else mentioned in the chat that Saunders and Plant had good jabs. He got underneath them and knocked them both out. So it's going to take more than that jab, and Charlo has more than the jab. And if he can establish distance off his jab, control that distance with his jab, maybe he could counter the counterpuncher a little bit like he did J-Rock with that counter right uppercut. Make Canelo have to get behind the jab and eventually, as he's slipping the jab, walk into a right hand, walk into an uppercut. It all starts with the jab for Charlo, but he's going to get hit a lot in this fight because Macias Montiel hit him a lot, and he hit him with the exact same kind of shots Canelo's going to be throwing. Underneath to the body, uppercuts up top, and Charlo got hit a lot, even though he dominated that fight in terms of winning rounds. So Canelo's the favorite, but I don't count Charlo out. I've always been high on Charlo. Not as high over the years with some bad, some inconsistent performances. Outside of Derevianchenko, he hasn't really impressed me that much since he beat J-Rock. But he showed me in that Derevianchenko fight, okay, when he's turned on, when he's faced with an opponent that has his utmost respect in a fight that has people's attention, he can still show up and check a lot of boxes. Big jab, power, athletic, strong, skills. So we'll see. Man, before I get out of here, I got another super chat to get to from my man Hakeem Steels with the Lakers logo. What's your view on Canelo Alvarez's legacy if he didn't make so many business decisions, i.e. fighting someone off of a 2-year layoff, moving up in weight class? My view on Canelo's legacy is that he's one of the top 5 Mexican fighters of all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great at 168, and he was he won 3 out of 4. He was basically just about the undisputed middleweight champion too. And despite me saying everything I just said, that Canelo is an all-time great, a first ballot Hall of Famer, maybe perhaps the best fighter post Mayweather Pacquiao. Andre Ward would have something to say about that too, so would a few others, but he's up there. No, Roman Gonzalez, Chocolatito, Andre Ward. But that said, at 5'8", 5'9", I wouldn't really favor Canelo to beat too many all-time greats, even though he himself is one. I don't think he would have beat James Toney at 60, Bernard Hopkins at 60, Marvin Hagler at 60. I don't think at 54... I think at 54, De La Hoya that fought Vargas would have beat him. Him and Trinidad would have been a great fight. And then even against guys at 54 and 60 like Gerald McClellan, the G-Man back in the day, Terry Norris. These are guys that aren't as famous as Canelo as Hall of Famers. Gerald, you got to really know boxing to know G-Man, Gerald McClellan, Terry Norris. But these guys might have beat Canelo. For all of what I just said about Canelo. So that's how I view Canelo. Like, he's definitely an all-time great, but with some of his stamina issues, the fact that he's a smaller guy who's probably roided up to these weight classes, but he's not alone, so I'm not picking on Canelo, leads me to believe that a lot of the all-time great middleweights and super middleweights would have beat him, and some of the all-time great 154s would have beat him too. But he's still a first ballot Hall of Famer, still an all-time great, Let's see what else. Another super chat from... thank you. Trust No Bitch. Thank you for one last super chat before you get out of here, brother. Trust No Bitch saying this will be my new go-to for boxing. Happy to hear that. Stay blessed, Fight Hype. Spence or Bud? Bud. I got Crawford. I wouldn't be surprised if Spence wins. Spence is excellent. Spence is... One thing that's a problem for Crawford, he might be sharper than Crawford. And if he is, that's a problem. Because sharp is just how sharp do your shots come out. Compact, properly thrown. And the basics, the 1, the 2. Spence, it comes at the body shots. They come out a little more sharper and compact than Crawford. Crawford likes to throw a couple of loose, little feeling shots. Touch, bang, and then come with the hook, touch, bang. And, he doesn't do it that much. He's not like Lomachenko in some of Lomachenko's fights in the past, where he feint, touch, bang, and then one hard shot. Crawford's throwing 3 or 4 hard shots in combination. But while he's touching to set up and set up counters and looks, Spence is throwing every shot hard and sharp, down the pipe correctly. That's going to be an issue. But all that said, Crawford counterpunching. I think Crawford is going to be down on the cards early, but as the fight progresses, he's creative, and he's going to find answers in there. He's going to find answers and punch in between Spence's punches and begin to counter him. and I think Crawford will stop him late. But won't be surprised if Spence puts him in a hole early and then just wins the fight. Crawford comes on, but it's not enough, and Spence shows he can adjust better than people like me are giving him credit for, and Spence wins the fight with a very competitive second half after controlling the first half. I think that's how Spence wins, but I got Crawford counterpunching. Another super chat to get to from my man Silent Milo said, do you mind asking Canelo why can't he fight Demetrius Andrade? Simply because his fans would like to see it. Silent Milo, thank you for the super chat, but myself and several other media guys have already asked Canelo about it, and he famously said he's horrible, he's a horrible fighter, he fights with nobodies, has a horrible style. So not even just that night in Texas where Boo Boo crashed, but I myself, others have asked him about the Andrade fight, and he just said like he brings nothing to the table. He hasn't fought any good fighters, and I'm busy making history, becoming undisputed at 68. I'm busy moving up to 75 to fight Dmitry Bivol or Sergey Kovalev. I'm busy becoming undisputed at 68. He's fighting Liam Williams at 160, Makchek Selecki at 160, So that it is what it is. And yeah, Andrade at 160 would have been a difficult fight for Canelo. No one's not saying that. But Andrade did himself no favors. When you're being ducked, there's a couple of things you could do. You could start getting knockouts. You could start fighting more often. If you're not a knockout puncher, you could look great over the 12 rounds. Make something fun for people to watch. And Andrade in a couple fights had that. When he won his belt on DAZN, he dropped the dude from Africa, Colton Dakwa, 4 times. But, that's what you got to do. Yeah, man, he wasn't able to get that activity or that level of opposition. DAZN wouldn't put Golovkin in there with him. Munguia ducked him. Munguia ducked Andrade, But, so, tough shit for Boo Boo Andrade. At least he's made some good money. But alright, chat. I think that's about it, chat. Anything else we want to see before we get up out of here? Do I think Crawford and Spence is a remake of Canelo Triple G? No, 2 different styles, but it might. I think it'll be as exciting as that second fight was. That first fight, That third fight, That second fight was the one between Canelo and Golovkin, and I think Spence and Crawford is going to live up to the hype because it's a guy who loves to be offense first, who loves to get off first and get his punch count from 70 to 100 punches around against a guy who wants a guy to throw punches at him so he could have a million counter-punching openings and opportunities. So, no, they're going to do their thing. Spence and Crawford. JL says Calzaghe would have beat Ward. Tough fight to pick, JL, because Bernard in his 40s was sniping Calzaghe with the right hand, dropped him early. Very close fight. I'm a Hopkins fanboy, so take me out of it. Of course I thought Hopkins won when they fought, but I'm biased for Bernard Hopkins. But he was sniping Joe with that right hand a lot. And Andre Ward in his prime isn't Bernard Hopkins at 43, 44 years old. That's a 50-50 type fight. Jamison Childress. Right away, I think of Josh Childress. Who remembers Josh Childress with the big afro on the cover of the NCAA 2K game back in the day? But Jameson Childress, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Happy Friday, Sean. Canelo said Andre just wanted a payday, but granted Rocky Felding won. LOL. Right. I get it. So he sucks, but Rocky Felding doesn't suck? Right. But, Jameson, you get how it works. Felding's a tomato can at that level, so there's no risk there. There's nothing to evaluate. Andre, you can fight. And you don't sell any tickets. And if I beat you, I don't get a belt because you got to come up to my weight class. And if I beat you, you have nothing on your resume that can validate what a difficult fighter you are. So I'm good. I'm gonna knock out this Rocky Felding, and then I'm gonna become undisputed. I'm gonna fight Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs got a belt. But so did Boo Boo. Boo had the WBO. Jacobs had the IBF. It just didn't happen for him. but you got to do enough in your own career that you add up to more than just a footnote if you're ducked, you know? Funny enough, Josh is my cousin. Oh, that's hilarious, bro. Man, your cousin Josh, he was good on the wing, super athletic. Loved his afro. But he was super athletic on the wing, and then he got his money overseas. And that kind of, to me, we never really found out what Josh Childress was going to be in the NBA, because he said fuck the NBA and took his money overseas. I remember that. He did that when nobody was doing that, and he did it in his prime. That was crazy. I remember that Atlanta Hawks team was fun. They gave the Celtics all the problems they could in the first round in '08. And it was like you could just throw a lob up in the air and Josh Smith, Marvin Williams, or someone's going to come down with it. So shout out to Josh Childress, man, and the Childress family. We've had him in the chat. That's beautiful. Sean, do you watch soccer? I do not. I watch the NFL and the NBA and the Yankees. I keep up with the Yankees a little bit. Not, that's it. I know the NFL and I know the NBA. Wembayama, baby. Wembayama, if he could, all he's got to do is survive. Survive the first 2 or 3 years when you're this thin, and then when you get your grown man strength and put a little muscle on, it's a wrap. It's a wrap for the league. If Wembayama can survive and not get his knee snapped in half early on being a twig. So, but all right, folks, I'm gonna get up out of here. I think that's about it. Thank you everyone for joining today. Everyone have a blessed weekend. Normally I'd call that J-Rock fight tomorrow, but it's my son's birthday party, so we're gonna be rocking with him. Still gonna watch the fight. Hopefully something newsworthy happens so that I could talk to you guys again by Sunday or Monday. But otherwise, everyone have a great rest of the weekend. So everyone have a great rest of the weekend. See you later, everyone. Peace out. God bless.